Welcome to Swartz Talkin Sports. I'm your host, Les Swartz. Another great show tonight. This is going to be a real interesting show. We've had Hall of Famers, we've had All Pros, we've had sports writers and sportscasters, but tonight we've got someone brand new for you, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. But before we go to our guest tonight, let's bring on my co-host, former Florida A&M Rattler quarterback, Al Chester, and voice of the Rattlers football and basketball telecast. Al!
My man Les, how you doing, buddy?
I'm hanging in
Happy
there.
Throwback Thursday from Jacksonville, Florida. We got 80-degree weather today.
Well, it's been raining. It's been pouring cats and dogs here. So let's hope things supposed to be in the 80s this weekend. So things are looking up. But I know you are like me. We've got a real special show tonight. We've been looking forward to this one. So what we're going to do
Well, I tell you what.
before we bring on our guest.
No, I was going to say.
Go ahead.
If you want real-time, first-hand answers, we got the guy tonight.
We do. This is going to be no opinion piece from you and I. We're going to get it from the real deal. So before we bring on tonight's guest, let's have Tony run the opening reel.
CAA football made history last season, becoming the first conference to have 6 teams make the FCS playoffs. How significant was that accomplishment for the conference?
Well, the answer to the question is it was very significant. But in my mind, it continued to speak volumes of what we always talk about, and that is that from top to bottom, within the structure of FCS, we think we're the best conference. And I think that just showed it in that there's a tremendous amount of parity, there's a tremendous amount of talent, and on any given game, you better come in with your chin strap buckled and ready to go, or your opponent's going to knock you off.
Swartz Talkin Sports is proud to introduce Commissioner of the Coastal Athletic Association, Joe D'Antonio. Joe, thanks so much for being on the show.
Gentlemen, good evening.
Good
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir.
We have been looking forward to this one, and I know in our pre-chat we had a lot of things to discuss. So let's get right into it, Joe. For people who aren't familiar with the CAA, or maybe they thought it was the Colonial Athletic Association, maybe you can give us those people out there a brief history. I know we got people on the West Coast that listen to this, but maybe a brief history of the CAA and the name change and why.
Sure. Well, I think a great place to start, Les, would just be simply where we fall kind of in the ecosystem of college athletics. We're one of the 32 Division I conferences. We're considered an FCS conference, which means that we play Division I football, but we play in the championship subdivision versus the bowl subdivision. So we actually have a bracket and a championship after 24 teams are selected that determines our football champion. But we're considered in the nomenclature of the NCAA an FCS conference. So you have 3 types of conferences in Division I. You have FBS conferences, FCS conferences, then you actually have conferences, it gets a little confusing, that are just simply called Division I. Division I conferences are those conferences that do not have any type of football within their membership, or play football within their membership. So within our conference, we have right now at the present time, we have 14 full members that stretch literally up and down the entire East Coast, from Boston, Massachusetts to all the way down to Charleston, South Carolina. And then we really have a separate football conference that has 16 members in the football conference, because we have 7 institutions that play football in the CAA, but play all their other sports in a different Division I conference. Some examples of those would be, for instance, Villanova plays football in the CAA, but is in the Big East. University of Rhode Island plays football in the CAA, but is in the Atlantic 10. So that's our membership, how our membership consists. And, the name change was interesting. I'm probably get into this a little bit later on in the show, but we went through an expansion scenario a few years ago in which we were very fortunate to add 5 great institutions into the CAA. And the name change was really looked at by our athletic directors and our presidents and chancellors as kind of the last, not the last ever move that we'll make, but kind of a culmination of that round of expansion, where we saw a change of our membership. We really saw a conference that stretched, as we just talked about, the entire length of the East Coast. folks really liked the CAA logo. You can see that on my shirt here, right? Folks liked the logo and liked the CAA moniker, and we really want to be referred to as the CAA, but thought that it was appropriate to change that first name to Coastal because Coastal more clearly represented really what the conference had become and kind of morphed into. So exciting time for all of us, both changing the name and adding those 5 institutions.
And we do have some, I know.
I tell you what, Commissioner, amongst the teams that you guys have, I was happy to see Hampton University and North Carolina A&T.
North Carolina A&T.
Give us some history on how these two teams became a part of what you're doing, man. I think that's a great deal for them, obviously.
Historically, HBCU schools.
That's correct.
Yeah.
When we started out with the expansion initiative, we really began to focus and hone in on, I would say, 2 to 3 characteristics of the institutions. Number one, you had to be a geographic fit, right? No disrespect to the teams in the Midwest or on the West Coast, but that wasn't what we were looking for. So there had to be a geographic fit. Obviously, both Hampton being in Virginia and North Carolina A&T being just outside of Raleigh-Durham and Greensboro were a great fit in terms of our geography of the conference. We then wanted to ensure, because we do take academics within the conference very seriously. We have great academic institutions. So anybody that was going to be coming in, we needed to know that they had a commitment to academics, both within their athletic department and their university as a whole. And certainly when you look at the academic tradition of both Hampton and North Carolina A&T, they easily checked that box for us. And then finally, we were looking for institutions that were committed to the overall well-being and development, not only of their athletic department, but of their student athletes as a whole, their student athletes as people and students, not just as athletes. And when you dig down and look at what these programs have accomplished and are accomplishing, it was very evident that they were really going to be a great fit for our conference. So that's really, Al, kind of how it all evolved. And then, once you get to know more about our HBCU members and understand some of the traditions that they have, some of it's so exciting. Number one, the band and cheerleader programs that they have are spectacular. Add so much to the ambiance of all of their competitions. Their homecoming affairs are like nothing I've ever seen, and I've had a chance to be at some of them, and they are just fun events. So, it's been awesome, really awesome for us as a conference to be able to embrace some of the HBCU traditions into the CAA.
Well, Tony,
and just to add, I mean, they both are rich in football and athletic history and tradition. I mean, they both had success on the football fields, on the basketball, on the track. I mean, when you look at both of those schools, you got 2 fine institutions.
No question about it. There's no doubt. And we couldn't be happier to have them as part of our membership.
And I think Tony will be able to throw up, I know he's got the listing of the schools in both the football and basketball, along with baseball. So everyone out there can actually see all of the schools listed there, and including the new ones. Now, you had Campbell, actually. I think Campbell is now in the football conference, Joe, right? You just had them added to the conference for football.
Yeah, Campbell's actually, just to make sure we're all on the same page, Campbell's actually a full member. They were the last school we added as part of the expansion initiative to get us to 14 full members. So you are correct. They're a member in the full member conference, and they're also a member in the football conference as well.
Now, one of the things I wanted to get to, obviously being commissioner, it's an incredibly challenging time. And Al's got some great questions that I can't wait to get answered by you, but it's just such a challenging time with conference realignment being number one, which you probably have to deal with. And maybe you can talk to the point where in the past, James Madison was a juggernaut when it came to football. I mean, 2 national championships. Since the time you were commissioner, they went to 2 of the national championship games. I think they played North Dakota State maybe twice. I'm not sure, but they made it. They participated in that. You lost them, and now Delaware is actually leaving a long-term CAA school as well. When this happens, do you look to maybe replace it with another school? Do you just want to stick with what you have? I know you can't talk about ongoing negotiations, but how do you work with the conference to try to maybe help minimize that when Delaware does go to like a Conference USA in 2 years?
Well, here's the situation with both James Madison and with Delaware. First of all, two great members of the CAA, institutions that both me personally and our conference membership have a tremendous amount of respect for. And I'd like to think that they didn't leave the CAA because they were unhappy with the CAA. They left the CAA, or in Delaware's case, are leaving the CAA simply because of the fact they're chasing something that we can't offer. And that goes back to how I answered your initial question about the kind of the eco-structure of college athletics. We are not an FBS conference. Right. So we cannot offer the opportunity to play football at the FBS level. So, James Madison left, and candidly, and the folks from James Madison in their administration know this, they were participating in our expansion discussions at the time that they left. So them leaving wasn't necessarily an automatic impetus for us to expand. We were already having the discussions of creating a model within the CAA that was going to keep us both sustainable and competitive as we moved into the future, knowing that there were going to be numerous challenges within the landscape of the NCAA. We wanted to make sure that our membership was prepared to meet those challenges head on and be both sustainable and competitive as we move forward. The situation involving Delaware, they're obviously going to be with us for one more year after this year. They'll play a full season in the CAA in 24-25, and then they're leaving to go to Conference USA to become an FBS institution. And Les, it's not really a situation of one leaves and one gets added. I think we can never look at things that way, because going back to how I answered Al's question about our HBCU members coming in, it's about a fit, right? Anybody that we add, we need to make sure that they're a fit within our membership. And I always tell people this: we're going to continue to make decisions that are in the best interest of the CAA and our membership. And that's really how we decipher and decide whether or not we're going to add an institution or we ultimately just stay at 13 for right now.
Okay. Now, Al, we have some questions, Joe, for you. But before we go to those, I know, Al, you had a really, really good question prior to the show. So why don't you go ahead and get Joe's opinion on that?
Well, I wanted to ask him about, from his perspective, the challenges that you see for the CAA, and then how the NIL and portal plays, and how you interact, if at all, in that whole process.
Yeah, let's take them one at a time, because you've obviously hit on two major issues in the NCAA landscape right now. First one being name, image, and likeness. And certainly myself, like many folks around the country, I'm a supporter of name, image, and likeness, and the opportunity for our men and women student athletes to be able to earn money associated with their name, image, and likeness, and be able to benefit from that. What we've seen, though, and what has created really, in my opinion, turmoil within the landscape is the fact that there's really not a lot of regulations or benchmarking right now. There are some rules that schools are supposed to be following. Whether they're following them or not could be up for debate in many cases. And the other problem that we've seen, as many of you, I think you folks know, and I'm sure many of your listeners know, is we're also dealing with a set of regulations right now in which each state has their own NIL rules and regulations. So it's become a little clunky in terms of trying to maintain and understand what rules you're supposed to be following and how do we get everybody on the same page. So I don't know if it ever happens or not. I think the wish of the NCAA, and certainly my wish, would hope to be someday maybe Congress would step in and we could create some type of uniformity around the name, image, and likeness rules, because it's causing a lot of turmoil in the business. And it's adding to then the issues associated with the next topic that Al brought up, and those are issues associated with the transfer portal and the movement of student athletes from one school to another. And, I don't fault anybody for being able to transfer from one school to another, but what we're seeing is really it's become a trickle-down effect in many ways, both up and down. So to give you an example, at the level that we're at right now, and I'm just going to focus on the sport of basketball, both men's and women's basketball. If we have some very good players, which we have many of, it's likely that there are schools at the FBS level. So, for instance, an Auburn, a Michigan, a Kentucky, a Louisville, et cetera, that if those players are good enough, they're looking at the talent that those players have and looking to potentially poach them to bring them up to the next level. All that's doing then at our level is we're looking at conferences that are on our spectrum, and we're saying, okay, well, if there's some great players in those conferences, we're looking to poach them and bring them up to our level. So it's really become a very strange game of basically farm systems. And the loyalty to one school, unfortunately, has been lost. Personally, I don't think it's a great thing for college athletics. I mean, I think we've lost sight of the fact that the main goal for all of our student athletes, and I know Les and Al, there's going to be opportunities for men and women to earn an awful lot of money. Unfortunately, those opportunities, percentage-wise, are few and far between. Some of the dollars that the men and women are getting at our level from NIL, yeah, it's a good chunk of change, but it's not transformational money. You're not going to live the rest of your life on $100,000. I wish you could. I wish we all could, but that's not going to be the case. So you need to have a value to education, and I think sometimes within all of this, what we've lost is the fact that the ability to go to college, the ability to have a scholarship, the ability to earn your degree, and then hopefully be able to set the foundation to achieve your goals and dreams in life. We need to make sure we don't lose complete focus of that, because that's a really important thing.
Well, and the one thing that we just to touch on the transfer portal, one last thing is, I think it actually might give kids that maybe are 2 and 3 stars a better opportunity to play at the FCS level, because what's happening is there's so many transfers that they're always going to get the 5 and 4 star kids, but the 2 and 3 star kids are not going to be going to those programs because they get too many transfers coming in. They have nowhere to go to some of these bigger schools. Maybe they go down to the FC level and really build their resume at an FC level school. That normally would have been a sitting on the bench for 2 years at an FBS school. Now they get the opportunity to play right away at an FCS school, so it might work in their favor, Joe.
No doubt. And then, that therein lies the dilemma with all this is our schools are benefiting many times from the transfer portal just as much as they're being impacted by it by losing individuals.
Well, let's go to one.
You're talking about that trickle. You're talking about the trickle down effect. The kids who really get hurt are the kids coming out of high school. They don't get opportunities to get scholarships because the other schools are pulling in kids who got playing time, who are more advanced, who are more athletic, probably, who are more mature. And high school kids don't have a chance to develop any place.
That's a very good point, Al. That was actually, I should have mentioned that in my comments, because that is one of the other negatives involved in this system, is that the traditional, we're going to recruit the great player out of high school days, those are becoming few and far between, because coaches are looking for the proven commodity.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Unless you're a proven 5-star guy, a consensus 5-star guy, you're right. That opportunity is not going to exist. But right now, before we have a couple questions, so let's go to Joni, and we got fired up some questions for CAA Commissioner Joe D'Antonio.
Yes, Les, we actually have 6 questions.
6. Well, let's run 3. Then I want to run some film on some of the accomplishments in the CAA this year.
Okay, that sounds good. Barry Smith says, "Welcome, Joe. Lots of experience in the Big East. What did you see in the CAA where you thought you could help?"
Good question.
Well, I was very fortunate in my Big East days to work under 3 great commissioners: Mike Tranghese at the old Big East, John Marinata with the old Big East, and Val Ackerman, who's the current commissioner at the Big East. Val and I were fortunate enough to be able to start what is the new iteration of the Big East together. So worked for 3 great folks there, and learned a ton in terms of what I was able to carry over into this role in the CAA. And a lot of this job is dealing with people, surrounding yourself with great people, and understanding, just how to manage the personalities. And certainly the time that I spent in the Big East taught me how to do a lot of those things, but it also taught me a lot of nuts and bolts things like scenarios about building schedules, understanding how television contracts work. And the fact that I was able to gain a great deal of knowledge in my days in the Big East certainly prepared me well for this job.
Great question, Barry. Joni, before the question, we just talked television contract. I know Al wanted to mention that TV deal that you worked out with the CAA. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on it? It's a tremendous deal you put together.
Yeah, thanks, Les. I appreciate that question for both you and Al. You know, we've been very fortunate to work in the time that I've been at the CAA with two great media partners in Flow Sports and CBS. And what we've been able to package together is, I think, one of the most unique deals in mid-major college athletics, in that Flow Sports is our streaming provider, and they stream all of our games in all of our sports. So they would be the equivalent of you watching a game on your phone or watching a game on your computer. Anything that's being streamed, Flow Sports is our streaming provider, and they pay us a fairly substantial rights fee for the rights to do that for us. We're also very fortunate to have a great linear TV partnership with CBS and CBS Sports Network. And last year on CBS Sports Network, we had 24 men's basketball regular season games, our men's basketball semifinals in our tournament. Our championship game was on national TV, and then our women's basketball championship game was also on national linear television on CBS. So you couple that all together, we had 28 national linear television appearances last year, which is by far the most of any mid-major conference except the Western Athletic Conference, which obviously has Gonzaga, that helps to drive their situation. So the last part of the TV deal, though, that we've been able to create, and is a big advantage for our institution. Again, I credit both of our partners, but specifically Flow Sports, in their understanding of allowing us to have some flexibility. Is, well, I can't get into the specific numbers, our member institutions are also able to put games on local linear TV. And that's a unique thing that you don't always see in conference television contracts, which is, media partners willing to have that kind of flexibility to allow the conference kind of to be able to maximize, their viewership amongst the fan base in their conference. So that three-prong approach, streaming partner, national linear TV, and local linear TV opportunities for our membership, has really put us in a very unique position.
You do an outstanding job.
Commissioner, let me add to that. Ask the question about how is that revenue shared with the schools and how all that works.
Yeah, great question. So from the rights fee that we get from Flow Sports, some of that money is used to pay our production costs for some of the games that we put on CBS. The remainder of that money that's left over it goes into a pot, and it's determined at the end of each fiscal year by our board of directors how that money is distributed. Usually what happens is there's a vote to distribute any money that's left over equally to our 14 member institutions.
Outstanding.
That's a great explanation on the split there, the TV revenue split. Let's go to a second question Joni probably has out there. Before we do want to run some video on some great moments in CAA sports this past year, but let's get question number 2 from Joni.
Okay. Actually, I'm going to skip down to a question that Barry Smith had with respect to the partnering of Flow Sports. He said that's huge. Did CBS get their nose out of joint with that deal?
No, it's actually to the contrary. So I think that the biggest thing to keep in mind is that they're two different entities. Flow Sports is a streaming provider, and CBS is a national linear TV provider. So it would actually be the other way around. Did Flow Sports get their nose out of joint relative to us taking some of the games and putting them on CBS? And therein lies the uniqueness of our deal and the great relationship that we have with both of our TV partners, that we were able to work together, carve out an agreement in which we really have the best of both worlds. We have a great streaming partner. We have a great presence on national linear TV. And again, as I mentioned, the third prong, we also have the ability for our institutions to put games on local linear TV. An example of that would be, for instance, Northeastern in Boston being able to put games on NESN, New England Sports Network.
I'm familiar with NESN, that's for sure, growing up in the New
I
England
knew
region.
you would be, Les.
Just like you, Joe. I know you're an Abington guy. I'm a Stoughton guy. We have the Massachusetts roots in common there. Now, some exciting things going on in the CAA this year in relation to some of the sports teams. You've had, obviously, Charleston. Listen, a great year. Just ran up against a red-hot Alabama team in the NCAAs last week, and I know you were out in Spokane watching that thing, and put up 90-plus points in lost, which you would have thought, their chances are pretty good if they throw 90-plus against Alabama, right?
No doubt. You're showing some video here of our men's basketball championship game and an overtime win by Charleston over Stony Brook. So, Charleston's had really 2 great years in a row, 2 great seasons in a row. And, I think you just saw today, I believe their coach was announced as the new head coach at Louisville. And it's an incredible accomplishment, both for him, really, and for the institution and for our conference. I mean, when you think that a coach coming out of the CAA has gone from the CAA really to one of the top, what do you figure, 7, 8 jobs in men's basketball in the country, it's pretty good, right? It's great for him, great for Charleston, and great for the CAA. And I think it speaks volumes, to be honest with you, Les, of the quality of basketball that we're playing in our conference, because he just doesn't get that job. That job comes from the success that he's had in our conference.
And just to expound upon the quality of the conference, look what our own UNC Wilmington Seahawks did. I mean, a tremendous on the road win at Rupp Arena against Kentucky, a nationally ranked top 10 Kentucky team. We have some video here of that big win, and that was like the talk of college basketball for 2 weeks, Joe. You guys were on top of the mountain right there.
No question. And I can't say enough great things about Takeo Siddle and the job that he's done at UNCW. First of all, he's a great person. And second of all, it's obvious he's a great coach, and he's had a lot of success there, and he's going to continue to have a great deal of success. Both Jimmy Bass, the athletic director before, and now Mike Oblinger, Aswani Valetti, their new president, they have things going in the right direction in Wilmington, and Takeo is really doing a great job there. And obviously a signature win for his program and a signature win for our conference, beating Kentucky at Kentucky.
Absolutely. It was on
big
ESPN.
Time right there.
Oh yeah, Al, we saw it.
Yeah.
It was on ESPN. They had
huge.
that thing up all weekend long. And also in the football, FCS. Well, real quick, Al, I just want to run something on Villanova, which put up a great battle against the champion South Dakota State, I think Jackrabbits. And I know you were out there for that game. Not the greatest weather, pretty windy, pretty cold, but they probably gave South Dakota State the best game in the playoffs. I mean, 24-13.
They did. A hard-fought football game. Under Mark Ferrante's leadership, Villanova's strung a couple great years together. They have a great program, and they certainly played the Jackrabbits hard. It's a tough place to win, and they almost pulled it out.
So now,
it's always challenging to win in somebody else's environment. Speaking of all the games, I mean, all the mandates that you have at your headquarters in Richmond, Virginia, how often do you get a chance to get out and see your schools play?
Well, it's the most enjoyable part of the job, first of all, Al. I love it. Anytime I get to go to a game, it's a privilege and an honor to see our coaches coach and our student athletes compete. During football season, what I'll try to do is I'll try to get to one home game of all of our members. And then during basketball season, I'll try to make sure that I see both our men's and women's team play at least one time in person. And I'll try to get to as many as I can. I'll get to at least a couple of all of our Olympic sport games, whether they be men's soccer, men's lacrosse, women's lacrosse, baseball, softball, field hockey, volleyball. Try to get to as many as I possibly can during the course of the year. It's the best part of the job by far.
Well, Joe, I know you're a traveling man. There's no doubt about it. Now, I know our time's limited, so we're going to try to squeeze in 2 more questions.
Sure.
And then I want to ask you about the practice with the commissioner, because I think that is incredibly unique. So
great.
Let's try to squeeze in a couple more questions, Joni.
Okay. So Howard Bloom has an off-point question. Joe, tell us about the time your dad met Ted Williams.
No.
Well, that's a true story. So my dad worked in a summer job for I believe UPS in Watertown, Massachusetts, and the gentleman that he worked with, it was just a summer job for my dad, but his friend that he worked with, it was his full-time job. And this gentleman had a house down in the Cape Cod area, and my grandparents were fortunate enough to have a house in Wareham. So this particular gentleman said to my dad one day, "Hey, I'm going to be taking off early on Thursday. I'm not going to be around on Friday. When you drive down to see your parents on Friday, can you drop my check off at my house for me?" This was, well before the days of direct deposit or anything like that. So my dad shows up at his friend's house, knocks on the door, and a gentleman answers the door, and he said, "Is John here?" And the gentleman said, "No, he's just went into the bathroom, but if you come in, he'll be out in a second." So my dad walked in the house, and he's standing with this gentleman, and he looks at him and he says, "Sir, if you don't mind me saying so, you look just like Ted Williams." And the gentleman said, "I am Ted Williams." so my dad had a brief encounter with Ted Williams, and come to find out, this gentleman that worked at UPS and Ted Williams were fishing buddies, and he was down in the Cape Cod area at his house for a couple fishing times.
That's a great question, Howard. That's a great story. Now, I have a question I'm going to ask Joe. How does a kid from Abington, Massachusetts, come to love and root for the Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah, that's also a good question.
Really?
So, I was fortunate as a young guy. I think many men and women during the younger days develop, childhood heroes. I always say that my two biggest heroes are my parents, right? But we also many times develop sports heroes is some of our childhood heroes. And I had two men that I really looked up to. One was Kyle Yastrzemski, who played for the Red Sox. Yeah. And the other one was Roger Staubach. Wow. And through my love of Roger Staubach, who I've since become friends with over the years, he's a great guy. Therein lies my allegiance with the Cowboys, and it's been actually a really big part of my life. I'm actually a Cowboys season ticket holder. I have many friends within the organization. And when they won the 3 Super Bowls in the 90s, when I was that was thrill of a lifetime. I don't know if we're going to win another one, but I was happy they won those 3.
Oh my God! Well, I mean, it's just crazy to me that a kid from Abington would be a Cowboy fan. Not that the Patriots were any great shakes, but the Cowboys. Interesting. Well, let's get one more question in for Joe, and then we'll find out about practice with the commissioner, because I'm curious to know how that got started. So let's go one more question, Joni, for CAA Commissioner Joe D'Antonio.
Okay. Howard Bloom has a very good question. Interesting.
Howard's questions are always very good.
They are. Any union rumblings at any of your schools?
Good question.
Yeah.
At the present time, not that I'm aware of.
That was quick.
Let's just leave it at that.
I was going to say, let's hope we don't have to deal with that, right? So, Joe, I know it's been great having you come on here, but before you leave us, you got to let us know practice with the commissioner. How did it get started? It's just a great idea.
Well, I appreciate that. It was 100% my idea. I developed the idea in my mind after taking some batting practice with the JMU baseball team one day. And I thought, well, if I could pull it off time-wise, wouldn't it be great to try to practice one time with each conference team that had won a conference championship in the previous season. So that's how it came to be, and it's been incredibly rewarding when I've been able to do it. And it's a great opportunity for me to be able to step behind the scenes and say thank you to our coaches and our student athletes for the time, dedication, and effort that they put in, not only to what they're doing for their institution, but also how they represent the conference as a whole. I had to put it on the back burner a little bit during COVID, and I've since brought it back. I haven't brought it back full speed. I'm just from a time standpoint, it's tough to practice with every single team that's won a championship in the previous season, but I'm making sure that I'm doing at least some of them during the course of the year. The last one I did was with the Monmouth women's basketball team, who had won not this year, but last year's women's basketball championship, and just a great group of women, and we had a great time that day.
So you're making the trip down to Charleston to hoop it up with the Cougars?
Yeah, I need to do that. So I didn't do it this past year, but now that they've won back-to-back, I got to make it a point to get down there and get a practice in with the Cougars.
I think that's a really cool program you've got there. Joe, I mean, Al, anything last things for our CAA Commissioner, Joe D'Antonio?
I got to ask him one more question here. I mean, he's a forward thinker. He's a commissioner. He's one of those guys who's leading the charge. What are your thoughts on the NFL rules and the changes of the rules having an impact on particularly, or maybe college football?
Yeah, great question. So we've seen obviously a lot of things in the media over the last couple of days about these rule changes, and I think we've come to know that football really has become a copycat sport in so many levels, whether it's the XFL, the USFL, pro football, college football. Whenever there's a change, it seems like one entity wants to copy the other. So now that we've seen this change in kickoff rules, obviously to protect the safety and well-being of the NFL athletes, I think you'll probably see at some point a modification in the kickoff rules at the college level. I mean, we already know now you can fair catch a ball right inside the 20 and have the ball come out. I think it's to the either 20 or the 25. So that protection already exists in one way. You don't have the kickers at the same level you do at the NFL that are kicking the balls through the end zone. So it'll be interesting to see what the Football Rules Committee decides in terms of maybe waiting a year, seeing how the new NFL rule works, and then possibly coming back to the table during this upcoming offseason after we've gone through a full year of what the NFL is doing to see if that rule might be a better fit for college football.
Joe,
outstanding.
Here's my take on just two quick rules. Why in the world does college football not adopt the 2 feet out of bounds rule for the receivers? And once your knee touches in college football, you're down. But in the pros, if no one touches you, you're up to run. I'm surprised those two rules have not been adopted by college football.
Yeah, it's a great point, Les. I don't know if I have a good answer there, but I think that's an intriguing question for everybody around the country. Why those two rules are different?
Yeah, it's just interesting because obviously these players, they grow up and they become NFL players. But Joe, I know your time's limited. I really, really thank you so much for coming on. Al and I have been really looking forward to this, and we're in CAA country. I'm in Wilmington, so I'm UNC Wilmington all the way. So we'd love to do this again down the road whenever you have time, and we really, really appreciate you coming on and joining Swartz Talkin Sports tonight.
I'm happy to come on anytime, and I appreciate you guys having me. Have a great rest of the day.
All the best, Joe D. All the best.
Joe, have a fantastic week.
Al.
I'll be back with Al Chester, and we're talking March Madness after this.
Forever 24 Fit, Leland's only gym with 24-hour access. Get fit when it's convenient, utilizing Life Fitness, cardio, and weight machines. And for those of you who prefer free weights, there is a free weight area as well. Start your membership today and get on your way to a better you. 6 Happiness. Enjoy fresh Asian cuisine in a relaxed and friendly atmosphere where we believe good times deserve great food. Featuring the best sushi chefs in the Leland area. So come on in and we guarantee you will be delighted.
Deal, man. I tell you what, if you want real-time, first-hand answers, getting it from this guy was perfect. I mean, he was off the hook, man. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and like I said, I really hope we can get Joe back. I know he's busy. He's evidently he's flying all over the country and driving all over the country, but we hope to have Joe D'Antonio back again. The commissioner of the CAA is doing a tremendous job. Now it's March Madness, Al, and guess what? One of the games are on right now, and it looks like Clemson is looking to pull an early upset. They're up by 13 over Arizona as we speak, 27-14.
Well, I tell you what, Les, there's been some great basketball. Last weekend was spectacular, and we talked about who we thought would come out of these regions as winners, and I think everybody's kind of still on track with their teams. But some great basketball, some some real super moments.
I know we all picked the upsets. I think we all had one. I think a couple of us missed on it. But Al, you've got your Final Four team still in there. I have my Final Four team still in there. Benny had Baylor. Benny got knocked out, and yep, Tony's just bringing these the brackets up right now. This is outstanding. Take a look at this. So these games are actually being played tonight. So you've got UConn and San Diego State, which is a rematch of last year's national championship game. That goes on at 7:39 tonight. It's going to be exciting. You got Illinois against Iowa State. I've got Iowa State coming out of the region. What do you like in the East right now? Do you think UConn does it, or do you think San Diego State has a chance to maybe pull the biggest upset in the tournament?
Well, I tell you what, UConn's playing spectacular basketball. We already know that. Got a great coach. They got a great scheme. They've been beating everybody to death all year. Yeah. So I don't think San Diego's going to have enough. And I've got Illinois coming out over Iowa State. They're one of my Final Four teams.
I know you and I know you and I are butting heads on that challenge. One. I know you. Well, I got to tell you right now, I think Iowa State is very balanced. But to your point, Illinois has got Terrence Shannon, and he might very well be the best player left in the tournament. He's a tremendous player. I think he's going to make a great pro. I think San Diego State goes as Jaden Lee goes. If Jaden Lee does not get off quick, UConn's going to roll in this game by double digits easily. But I think San Diego State can throw a few things at UConn and maybe give them a little bit of trouble, at least more than anybody's given them so far today in this tournament. Tonight, we've got North Carolina, my pick to win it all, the Tar Heels, playing against Alabama. And I know we all talked with Joe about Alabama knocking off Charleston. Man, they can score the basketball. Highest scoring team in college basketball. They gave up 96 points, Al, and still won by 13 points.
I know, man. I'm telling you, you find a team that gets hot, man, and we saw that last weekend. You put that ball in the hoop, which is the object of the game, you can beat anybody. And Alabama's done a great job at it. North Carolina got into a little tight frenzy there early on, but they found a way to win. Great teams find a way to win. That should be a classic matchup. That might be probably the best game of the night.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. And this whole Clemson-Arizona thing, this has kind of got me surprising. I know Clemson surprised a lot of people so far. They're running P.J. Hall 18 points a game. But right now, I mean, they're throttling Arizona. Now, maybe it's early. Arizona can make the comeback. But I don't know. Do you think Arizona's got enough to come back here? They got Caleb Love. I mean, they got the big guy, Omar Ballo inside. Do they have enough to maybe come back against Clemson?
Anything can happen, Les. I tell you what, once you get the jitters out of the way, and most of these teams have got the jitters out last weekend, now it's showtime.
Yeah.
So anything can happen. Arizona, Clemson should be a good matchup. It's not over yet. I mean, Clemson's ahead right now.
That's true.
But don't count Arizona out just yet.
Well, I know. I didn't have Clemson coming out of this region at all. Now tomorrow we got another round of games. If Tony can throw these up, you've got the number 1 seed Purdue battling Gonzaga. Now, they just absolutely decimated Kansas over the weekend. They're playing fantastic basketball, but do they have enough inside to handle your guy? I know you like the big boy inside, Zach Edey.
Yeah, I tell you what, Zach Edey, man, he showed up and showed out last weekend, and when they doubled down on him, the guys from outside did a good job. We talked about that last week. They can shoot the basketball, and when they're shooting well and give Edey some room, they pitch it into him, and I tell you what, all he's got to do is grab it and hold it up and throw it in the hoop, man. I tell you what. So I think Purdue will handle Gonzaga on tomorrow.
7'4", 300 pounds. Now, speaking of big guys, how about this NC State kid, DJ Burns, 6'9", 275. They pulled the upset last week. Well, I mean, it wasn't really an upset. I mean, they beat Oakland 79-73, who had beaten Kentucky. I know our boy Slack on Sports, Randy wasn't so happy. He had Kentucky going to the Final Four, but they're playing the number 2 seed Marquette. Now, Benny always tells me Marquette does not have a lot of size, but they got Tyler Kolek back, and he put up 21 last week. Does Marquette beat NC State and ruin their Cinderella dreams?
Well, I tell you what, NC State has the big guy. He's a left-hander. He looks like a football player playing basketball. He's got a lot of body to put on people. But Marquette was my team to come out of this region. I think Marquette, they've been running and gunning. I think they got enough to handle these guys. Should be a classic matchup, though.
Al, you're looking pretty good so far right here. I'm just going to tell you. In the South, you got the number 1 seed, the Houston Cougars, going up against number 4 Duke. Now, interesting enough, Houston, wins in overtime against A&M last week. But A&M missed 19 foul shots. Now, I'm just telling you right now, and I agree with Seth Greenberg of ESPN, who I love his analysis. If Duke goes to the line 35 to 40 times, they win this game. If it really depends on how they officiate this game. We know Houston likes to play really, really solid defense. They're physical. They're physical on the offensive boards. If the refs let them play, I like Sampson's crew and the Cougars to move on. If Duke's going to the line 30 to 40 times, Al, I just don't know how Houston wins this game.
When they're free throws, you got to make them and you got to take them. And you're right. Free throws, high percentage shooting from the free throw line. Houston is very physical. And if they put Duke on the line, I agree with you. I co-sign that. They get there, they're going to knock down a high percentage of free throws, and that could put Houston in trouble. But now Houston can run and gun as well.
They can.
So we have to see. But that's going to be another classic matchup of two great basketball teams.
Well, you had that kid last week, McLean. There, 8 out of 10 3-pointers, put up 30 points for the Blue Devils. And they got the big kid inside, Filipowski, who really has not showed out so far. I'm expecting him to come to play against Houston. Last game in that region is in the Midwest. My pick to go to the Final Four, Tennessee, number 2 against number 3 Creighton. I think this should be a good one. Tennessee barely got by. They really put the clamps on Dalton Connect last week, a transfer kid out of Northern Arizona. He's up for Player of the Year, but I mean, they made him earn his points, Al. I think we could be looking at an upset, even though I got Tennessee going to the finals. It wouldn't shock me if the Blue Jays of Creighton won this game.
Yeah, I tell you what, Tennessee's got to get off to a good start because Creighton they've got they got size, they got athletic people, they got shooters, and they can run the floor well. So Tennessee needs to get off to a good start, play good defense, and try to contain these guys because I smell an upset there, and the Vols need to be very careful.
Well, let's see how we all turn out next week. So far, like I said, Al and I, we got all our guys, we got all our teams in going to the Final Four. Now, before we let you go, Al, I know you love the women's game. Al, and we want to bring this up. Okay, Al, explain this to me. Rattler Sports Network, look at this. You've got your partner, Melvin Beal, up here. Explain exactly what this is to all our viewers, and and who is that amazing woman, number 5 at FAMU?
That's our Rattler. I tell you, she's an All-American, man. She's a HBCU All-American. Grizzle. She's a point guard, and she's from Toronto, and by way of California to FAMU.
Okay.
And she played her second year there this season. And I tell you what, she lit it up. She was the SWAC Player of the Year, and she was also selected this week as an All-American. And we're very proud of her. She lit it up. They got to the tournament play. They lost to a very good basketball team, but she was held about 16 points. But she can handle a rock. Yep. She can shoot it, and what a talent she is.
Well, now I know you love the women's game, and we touched on it a little bit last week. So, I'm not going to go into all the brackets or whatever, but we got the big names. Let's face it. South Carolina's playing Indiana. I don't see them losing until they get to the Final Four. I don't see them losing at all, Al. I think they're going to win the whole thing. Your take on
I agree with you. I tell you what, they playing masterful basketball, and what else can you say? I mean, they won 32, 33 basketball games.
Yeah. Nobody
can beat them. They're in a good rhythm together. They've got a all-star freshman who can handle that rock like Magic Johnson. Of course, Dawn Staley, their coach, she's everybody's dream. She gets it done, man. They got it figured out. They know how to win. They know what to do at the right time, and they're playing with a lot of confidence.
She's got this program in such rarefied air right now. The only thing that it reminds me of is UConn's run. That's where South Carolina is right now. Now I'm gonna throw one at you. I like Colorado to upset Caitlin Clark and the Iowa Hawkeyes. You heard it.
What? I heard it from you first.
I mean,
but I tell you what, Caitlin. Go ahead.
No. I saw them play against West Virginia over the weekend, and I was with the book. The book was over. We were watching the game, and I really liked the Mountaineers' chances. I thought they played them tough. She broke loose in the second half. She ended up having a really good second half, finished with 30 points. But I think Colorado has played really well this year in the Pac-12, a very good Pac-12, and beaten some really good teams. It would not surprise me if Colorado actually won this game.
That's a good call, Les. And I'm gonna tell you, Colorado actually played very well last weekend. They look real good as a team, and you D up on Caitlin. I mean, she's going to get her points. She's one of those kind of players that she's going to knock down her points. But I tell you what, they played a very physical last week, and she got off to a slow start, but she finished well. And they end up going into overtime. But I like that call. Colorado, they got a shot at upsetting Iowa and the top player in the country.
Yeah, and I think, believe it or not, I saw UConn play, and they had a struggle against Syracuse. I actually watched that entire game, and that came down to the final minutes, and UConn's not what they used to be. I know that Buchers is a really, really good player, Paige Buchers, but they've had some injuries. One of their players is torn in their ACL. I think her last name is Fald. She's out. I like USC. I tell you, I love Juju Watkins. I saw her play. Wow, is she good, Al? She broke, like you said last week, Caitlin Clark's scoring record as a freshman, but she's just not a shooter. I mean, she can create. She's got athleticism. I think she's the future of women's college basketball once Clark moves to the WNBA.
I agree with you. I tell you what, she is the gospel truth, though, as a true basketball player. She doesn't play like a freshman, that's for sure.
No.
And she's every bit of 6'2". She can put that ball in a hoop, and she makes everybody around her better. She's got that kind of magic that they just really appreciate out of their players. They're going to be tough to beat as well.
Yeah, I'd love to see, between you and me, I would love to see a South Carolina and USC final. I think the matchup is actually better there. I know LSU's still alive, defending champs. You can't ever count out the defending champs. Angel Reese, Mulcahy, has got that crew rolling. But I would love to see USC and Juju Watkins go up against the USC, University of South Carolina. I know Iowa, the ratings. I know once Caitlin Clark hits the airways, I just saw the ratings. They just came out. Sky high. I mean, 3.2 million. I mean, it's just crazy what she's doing to get ratings for the women's game, and I think it's great. I think it raises everyone's level up. But I would love to see a USC in South Carolina final. That's just me. What about you?
That sounds good. I tell you what, my upset though, I think UCLA can beat LSU.
Okay,
that's my upset.
Right.
I think LSU, they struggled a little bit last weekend, and but I think UCLA has playing with some confidence. If they can get off to a good start and have LSU chasing them, they could upset LSU, and we could be talking about something different the next time we have our show.
All right. Well, I like Colorado to beat Iowa. You like LSU to upset UCLA. This has been an outstanding show, Al. Just to tease it, in 2 weeks, I've got a couple of football players from the University of North Carolina coming on the left side of the line that protected Drake May. We're going to do a little NFL preview special before the draft. They actually had their pro day today, so I'm really curious to see how they made out. William Barnes and Ed Montelis, the guard. So we're going to have them on Thursday, April 11th, to do a little pre-draft special. So that'll be good. We wish you a fantastic weekend out in Jacksonville. We'll see you in 2 weeks because we are not going to be having a show next week. Our amazing producer earned a vacation. So he's going on vacation with his amazing wife. Right. So we'll see you on the 11th for the NFL Draft Preview Show with our North Carolina football offensive lineman. Have a great week, my friend. And I'll be back with the wrap after this.
Jim's Pawn and Gun Shop, located at 4212 Oleander Drive, Wilmington's #1 firearms dealer. Sporting a large inventory, including all brands of handguns and long guns, a full stock of accessories, and all types of ammunition, Jim's Pawn and Gun Shop has it all, including the best customer service in the area.
Before the lights go out, call Wilmington Generators. We offer the lowest price and a 10-year warranty for all Briggs & Stratton installations. A Briggs & Stratton powers more of your home for less money. Call for a free quote. Wilmington Generators. We play with power.
Welcome back to Swartz Talkin Sports. I'm your host, Les Swartz. This has really been an enjoyable show. It's been outstanding. Very special thanks to our guest tonight, Joe D'Antonio, Commissioner of the Coastal Athletic Association. Some great insight. I mean, I love the conference. I love what he's doing with the conference, but I love his insight on just not the NCAA and college sports, but the professional as well. So that's been outstanding. As always, Al Chester, my amazing co-host. We'll see Al in a couple weeks. Real quick, again, we're not going to have a show next week. Like I said, our producer, Tony the Tiger Smeraldi, has earned his vacation. So he is running. And by the way, just letting everyone know, if you've seen a couple bottles of wine sitting here. We've got Joni and I, our chat girl. We were out in Napa Valley last weekend, visiting a couple wineries. Ran into a tremendous one, Emmett Scorsone Wines. They make a tremendous wine. 3 different labels: Judge Palmer, Dominica Amato, and Emmett Scorsone. If you like Cabernet, if you like Sauvignon Blanc, Merlot, Chardonnay, they've got it all. They've got a great wine club. We were able to go out there and spend a few hours with Mike Scorsone and Palmer Emmett, just really checking out the whole entire vineyards there. We got a great wine tasting experience. So if you're out in the Napa or the Sonoma Valley, give them a shout, check them out. You won't be disappointed. So listen, we're back on April 11th. We're off next week. We'll be back with William Barnes and Ed Montelis, University of North Carolina offensive tackle and guard, NFL preview show. For everyone here at Swartz Talkin Sports, Tony the Tiger Smeraldi, my chat girl Joni, we'll see you in 2 weeks. This is Les Swartz. Have a great weekend, everyone.